crew's done a great job with him. He's a knucklehead at the gate. He's very difficult. So he spends a lot of time at the starting gate, and they've done a great job with him, and hopefully he's not a problem tomorrow, and he handles everything well, but he's a nice horse.
Let's take a look at his last start. The three other than, he's number 5 in the Darley Silks. Talk about this effort, if you would.
Well, he's sitting there just waiting. He has a lot of horse. Alan's just waiting for his chance to make a move, and he's run this way almost every time. He settles well and then fires, when he needs to, and I think he goes inside here in a minute and gets through on the rail. But his Dreaming of Anna is his sister, was champion. Very nice horse. So he's bred for the turf, and he's drawn inside tomorrow again, so he should have a good trip. You don't want to blow ground here at Saratoga. Belmont with the bigger turns, you have a chance. But here he's just waiting for an opportunity. He decides to go inside instead of outside, and luckily he got through there. And Kent Desarmo on pick 6 is outside, and he's running well. But we got a nice run on him and went on and opened up a length or so and won by a half a length. So it was a nice race.
Our regular viewers know how much I think of Alan Garcia as an outstanding young rider, particularly on grass. Talk about what Alan Garcia brings to your operation.
Well, he's a great young rider, and he's got a great attitude. He works hard. Like I just texted him a few minutes ago and asked him to be at the barn at 7 in the morning to work some out of the gate. He helps us out of the gate a lot because the riders are better, jockeys are better than the exercise riders. And he's very in tune with what we're doing in our stable, and he's a great young rider, and we're lucky to have him.
Before we let you go, I want to talk about a couple of 2-year-olds. Today, 6th race, Krypton, a first-timer by Rock Hard 10.
He's trained very well. He's done everything right. He's ready to run. We think he will perform well, although Stan Huff's colt was second to Rick Violet's Holy Bull, who had a rough trip into Sanford. So I think he's strictly the one to beat, but our horse will run well.
And tomorrow, and I like this number, a $3.1 million filly by the name of Chimayo. $3.1 million.
Yeah, they spent a lot on her because of her pedigree, and she's by AP Indian. Hopefully it wasn't on her for a racehorse, it was just for her pedigree. No, I'm just kidding. She's a beautiful filly, does everything right, and she might be in need of a run, but she will perform well.
Is there more pressure on you when they cost $3.1 million?
For sure, there is, but she does everything right, and she makes our job easy. So hopefully she'll run well. She might be in need of a run. She's been training at Green Tree all summer and on the poly, so she hasn't been on the dirt very many times. So if she gets dirt in her face, it'll be new to her. But she's very classy, does everything right. We expect her to run very well.
Karen, as always, we appreciate your time. Thank you so very much for having joined us this morning on Down the Stretch. Good luck this afternoon, this weekend, and good luck for the rest of the meet. We hope to see you again very soon.
Thank you very much.
Karen McLaughlin, ladies and gentlemen. Karen. We are up to our final break on this morning's August 1st edition of the program. Thank you so much for having joined us on a lovely Saratoga Saturday. By the way, both Forever Together and Ruth Therianne will be contesting this afternoon's Diana. As we go to this final break, going to take you back a year to the 2008 Jim Dandy, and we'll take a look at how that turned out, and Michael and I will be back with NYRA President Charlie Hayward right after these messages.
Quarter of 23 and 2/5 seconds between Mint Lane and Atara, and they continued to exchange blows down the backstretch run. 4.5 lengths behind. Talavacati on hold third, 5 furlongs out. Macho again at the rail fourth, and then Tis Now. Tis Then runs in fifth. 3 lengths back to Pyro. Pyro's about 9 lengths from the leaders. And then a break of another 6 back to a Knock Nicol. Well behind. A half of 46 and 4/5 seconds. Mint Lane still going at it here. Still going at it with Tatara. Now Mint Lane's beginning to get away from Tatara. Here comes Talavacati now. Talavacati to come after the softened up Mint Lane. And it is now Talavacati who has taken the lead. Macho again is right there, and on the outside, Tis Now, Tis Then. And Pyro, the favorite, is now only 3 lengths from the lead as the field turns for home in the Jim Dandy. 'Tis now, 'tis then has wrested the lead from Talavacati. Macho again right there at the 8th pole. Pyro's on the outside. There's 1 furlong to go. Here's Macho again, who is now the leader. Pyro runs at him. Macho again, and Pyro down to the line. Macho again, and Pyro. Macho again has won the Jim Dandy, beating Pyro by a neck. 'Tis now, 'tis then third.
Hello, I'm Mary Lou Whitney, and you're watching OTB in Saratoga Springs, one of my favorite places to be in the world.
Welcome back to Down the Stretch, everyone. I'm Mark CUSANO. Our thanks once again to KIARAIN McLaughlin for having joined us. And you just took a look at last year's Jim Dandy, where Macho again, who is set to contest next Saturday's Whitney, won the Jim Dandy by a neck over Pyro, scoring his first ever graded stakes victory. Our final guest this morning. This is a tradition on this show to have the NYRA president each year on the opening show from Saratoga. No different this year, as we once again welcome in NYRA President and CEO, Mr. Charles Hayward. Charlie,
hey Mark,
welcome
great
back.
To see you.
Nice to see you.
It's always when I see you on the first Saturday, I know Saratoga's really begun, and I'm thrilled to be here.
Thank you. All right, assess the first 3 days of the 2009 Saratoga meet.
First of all, opening day, I started doing interviews at 6 o'clock in the morning, beautiful sunshiny day. But it was, you know, last year we got pouring rain, 18,000 people, but I swear everyone was smiling all day long. And so when we had good weather on Saturday, we had great handle, we were way up in attendance, way up in wagering activity on and off track. It was a really great card. The cards, I think, so far, at least in my view, and I'm a little biased, I think Mr. Campbell's done a brilliant job putting the whole thing together.
Very competitive cards. Charlie, realistically, in this economy, what are your expectations for this year's Saratoga meet?
Well, it's a blend of a few things. Last year, as you know, we started off really poorly. The first 3 weeks we were down over 20%. We ended up all source handle down about 10.3%. Attendance was about 8%, 9% down. You know, the economy's turning a little bit. The market's been up. Housing's been up. Belmont was better than in July than it was in May and June. So if you put that all in the mixer, I think with reasonable weather, instead of being down 10%, which is what the industry's been down for the first 6 months, I still think we'll be down maybe in the 4 or 5% range in all source handle. I think attendance-wise, we actually might be able to make a little gain on last year. And if we get weather like this the rest of the meet, you know, we could be in positive territory. But for the moment, I'm saying down, but only down about half of what we've been this year.
We have seen this year both Churchill Downs and Del Mar basically be forced to cut 1 day of racing per week. How can Saratoga continue to race 6 days a week?
Well, we have the benefit. I mean, there's different issues, I think, in Kentucky. Kentucky has had to cut purses. Ellis Park is running fewer days, so the general horse population isn't there. I mean, if you look at over the last year, the 2-year-old sales, all the sales have been down 30, 40%. It's been a very, very tough market. So if there's fewer horses being sold, there's fewer horses ready to run. So I think that has an impact. California has a further unique problem is they're really an island. They really don't have any other jurisdictions to draw upon. So I think that they're in a tough situation just to start with. The economy makes it worse. You know, here, Saratoga, you know, we still have a good purse structure. We're down a little bit from last year. We'll still give away more every day than any other place in the country. You know, this is really about the stakes program, 2-year-olds, and turf racing. And, you know, those are the area that seem to be the most robust. And to be honest, we've actually had better luck filling our races with the 2-year-olds. The first 2-year-old we ran last year, Philly, I think we had 6, and the first colt we had 7. So, you know, knock on wood, I think that, you know, Mr. Campbell's done a great job in getting horses on the ground.
I mentioned earlier in the show, in both the Schuylerville and the Sanford, first 3 finishers in both races, Kentucky-based 2-year-olds. How much of that has to do with the fact that you've run less 2-year-old races this spring and summer here in New York than I think ever before?
Yeah, I think that the main reason for that was the weather. Mr. Campbell will be the first one to tell you that, you know, as you know, we lost over 70 turf races. And not only did we lose 70 that were carded, we couldn't card a number of others. And commensurate with that, you know, trainers quite properly don't like to train in the wet with their 2-year-olds. So we got really backed up both in training, and therefore that backed up the races. And I think that's why you see the participation early on in the meet in the maiden races. So, you know, people are ready to go. And Kentucky, you know, Keeneland runs 2-year-olds in April. Churchill has a stakes race on Derby Day. We saw that because the winner of that came and won here. So we're a little bit further behind in general, but this year we're so because of the weather.
Sometime back in mid-June, I believe at an address here in Saratoga, you mentioned that you were going to cut back on the number of races run during the week because the programs ran too long. We have not seen that up to this point. Is that a change in philosophy?
Well, we ran 9 yesterday, I think. And we were going to try and run 9 every weekday, except on Thursday we'd run 10 because we have a steeplechase race. And then we turn around, and if you look at the overnight for Monday, we've got 10. We're not running 9. What it really is, you know, Mr. Campo mentioned to us that, you know, he could run 7 days a week. And I said, PJ, if you even suggest running 7 days a week, you know, I'm going to get hung from the rafters. Yes. So we have no intention of doing that. But what it really demonstrates is that there's a tremendous, you know, demand at the entry box right now. So we went to 10. We still want to run fewer races this year than we did last year, and I'm sure that we will. But right now, the horsemen are ready to go. There's a demand for it, so that's why we're running 10 on Monday.
Charlie, this has always been interesting to me. NYRA is a not-for-profit organization, but how critical is it that you make money?
Listen, I think it's very critical that any organization makes money, but the real value of being not-for-profit is, and you can see it across the industry, the real value is that if you're a for-profit company like Churchill or like Magna, they have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders to maximize the shareholder return. So, you know, Keeneland would have never built a library if it wasn't a not-for-profit. And also, it's no coincidence that Saratoga's #1 in purses per day, Belmont's 3rd, I think Oak Tree is 4th, Woodbine is 6th, Del Mar I think is 5th, maybe 4th along. So something like 6 out of the top 10 racing jurisdictions in the country are not-for-profits, and that's no coincidence.
What does NYRA need from a financial standpoint? What do you need to get out of Saratoga to make it a profitable year?
You know, I think if we've held up pretty well on the bottom line this year because we've been able to negotiate stronger simulcast rates. Saratoga is hugely important to us. You know, last year we were hurt because of the 10% decline. So again, we've modeled on, you know, the numbers that I just mentioned being down about 5%. You know, if we can do that, we'll still have a very, very good Saratoga. And we're still hoping, despite the economy, that NYRA is going to actually turn a profit, reporting profit for the first time since 2001.
Charlie, first year here at Saratoga that the state of New York owns the property. Does that make any difference? Is it basically business as usual?
It's absolutely business as usual. I mean, we got franchise legislation in February of 2008, and that was a bill, and a bill is fine, but a bill can be changed the next year. So all the terms, the 25 years, all the lease agreements, the size of the board, the fact that we do spring and fall racing, we took everything that was in that bill and we put it into a franchise agreement so that NYRA and the state are committed to running training here in the spring and fall. We're committing to run at least 36 days. So I think that anything that we possibly could have imagined went into that franchise agreement. So they may own the land, but they really have nothing to say about how we conduct business as long as we do it in the confines of that franchise agreement, which, by the way, took from February to September to finally get negotiated. So we have very tough, fair contracts, and we expect the state to abide by them, and we certainly plan to abide by them.
You touched upon this briefly earlier. You were forced to reduce purses slightly because of business, but here at Saratoga, for the second year in a row, you're offering purse incentives. Talk to our audience about that strategy for a moment.
Well, Steve Dunker really came up with this originally, and PJ Campo has embraced it. And the idea, and we have 3 different kind of incentives, and 2 of them, I think 5 races yesterday were affected. One of them is if we have a race that comes off the turf and 8 or more horses stay in, the price of that race goes up 20%. If you have a race that is turf or dirt, mile and an eighth, we start putting incentives on every horse that participates over a certain level. And finally, just if we have a field size that's greater than, I think, 7, there's a further incentive. And the whole point is to create incentives for participation, because participation in field size is exactly what drives our business. So those bonuses, which are real incentives and can help make up some of that purse cut, are actually incentives to the wagering. So in effect, those bonuses pay for themselves. So I think you're going to see a lot more of that where there's an incentive for participation. It's better for the fans, and it's ultimately better for the owners because the pots are bigger.
So you've done studies that show with the additional horse or horses that trigger the incentives, you're going to make enough money back in handle that you can afford to give those incentives away.
That's exactly right. On a live track bet, purses get about 6% of the bet. On a simulcast bet or OTB bet, they get somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 to 3.5%. So we're going to put out a little bit of a summary on this on Monday, just so that everybody knows and understands what it is that we're doing. Frankly, I think it would be great for the industry if they could do that as well.
Charlie, most of us think that oxygen is good and necessary, yet recently we've had a rule come out restricting the use of the hyperbaric oxygen treatments. Talk to our audience about what's bad about oxygen.
I don't really, I'm not a scientist, and this is an issue that it really involves the State Racing and Wagering Board. There's a hyperbaric chamber apparently just off the premises here at the track. The State Racing and Wagering Board came in and did their own investigation. Their vets and their scientists told them whatever they did, and they put some rules regarding that chamber in place that, obviously, certain aspects of house rules, we're gonna help the State Racing and Wagering Board enforce that. I know that Matt Hegarty wrote a very nice piece in tomorrow's Racing Forum about it. So I'm going to take a pass and be smart enough to not comment too much on something I don't know anything about.
Finally, before I send it to my partner, have you had any formal discussions we'll start with Jess Jackson, about Rachel running here at Saratoga following tomorrow's Haskell?
We've come to know Jess Jackson very well. He's a great man. He's a real enthusiast of the game. It was funny on his horse when he was running his last race, which he won, which I'm now blanking on.
Kensai?
Right, Kensai was running. Hal Handel ran into Mr. Jackson in the hot dog stand in the food court and said, "Mr. Jackson, I think we can do a little bit better for you. Why don't you come downstairs and have a meal with us?" And he was there with his family and just having a good time, didn't want to bother us at all. And so we really left him alone. I mean, last year he was very gracious. He ran on the turf at Belmont, came up here and ran in the Woodward, and then ran again in a Jockey Gold Cup. There's a lot of opportunities for the filly to run, as you know, could run in Alabama potentially could run in the Haskell. I mean, I'm sorry, in this Travers, running in the Haskell on Sunday. Personal Lenson's the day after the Travers. And
Woodward.
And the Woodward. So, you know, I think there's plenty of opportunity here. We know that he likes Saratoga. He certainly came out, I think, a couple of days ago and said that he would, you know, consider something at Saratoga. But no, I mean, we have not, you know, made a run at him. We've talked to him. We talked to him a lot. But, you know, it's his horse, and he's going to do what he wants with the horse.
All right, we're going to have some email questions for you in just a moment. But for now, let me send it over to my partner, Michael.
Charlie, thanks for being with us again this morning. I will tell you that if you want to answer this sticky approach avoidance question under an assumed name, you're feel free to do so. He knows where I'm going, folks. Again, after all these years, is there maybe finally some serious movement with alternative gaming at Aqueduct?
Well, let's do a viewer's advisory here. I've been answering this question since I first started in November of 2004. Answered a number of times, and every time I was wrong. So, having said that, I can tell you we met with the new director of the budget named Bob Megna. Bob's been in Albany for a long time, and he was one of the most refreshing, engaged, pragmatic individuals that we've dealt with. He understands what I've been talking about for the last couple of years, which is New York State can't go anyplace else and find $300 million, which they can find for a relatively small investment of time and money to get Aqueduct up and running. He understands that, and most importantly, he's the guy now running the bid process. I know over the last 2 weeks, the first thing that they did is that they asked the bidders to rationalize their bids so that they could be compared equally, because the original bid process was basically said, you know, bid how you want to bid. So that's been smoothed out. They've got somebody advising them on that. I know there were 3 of the bidders in yesterday making presentations, and in talking with the political leaders, particularly on the assembly side, they seem to be very engaged. Audrey Pfeffer, who was the assemblywoman from Queens, met with her about a week ago. So I think obviously it's August 1st. They didn't get it done by August 1st. But I'm more encouraged than I've been before. Doesn't mean it's going to be the right outcome, but I'm encouraged that by the time that we leave here on Labor Day, that they will have selected a vendor. And the good news about that is that there's 6 players now in the mix, whereas last time I think there were 3. So I think that again, in the horse racing industry, we get 16% of the net win between the breeders, the owners, and NYRA. But the state gets over $300 million, and let's hope they keep the eye on that ball.
Everybody can root for that. As a follow-up here, okay, if this gets going, eventually there's going to be a revenue stream to NYRA for some many overdue improvements. Right here at Saratoga, you have some wonderful plans. A few comments to the audience, if you will, on where we might be 5 or 10 years from now with this.
Well, we retained a firm to look at all 3 of our facilities, look at the situations, and make a determination of where the money would first be spent. And with Aqueduct getting money from the VLTs, construction, and Belmont really being in better shape, but also in the mix a little because there's some question about VLTs would go there, and there's no sense in starting to work on that before we know what the outcome is going to be. So we've gone forward and selected 2 architects. Paul Roberts of Turnberry Consulting has been managing them. They were actually, both of them, here yesterday. We spent 4 hours in a meeting with them. 2 architects, 1 to do the back side, 1 to do the front side. And the most important thing that we've done is we've also hired Tom Frost, who's a local architect, who has reconstructed for us the entire history of the track. And you know, a lot of people, myself included, think, well, the track's been here since 1864, the building's been here since 1864. Not true.
Yeah, it's interesting.
There's been you know more than anybody because you're a great historian. But so we've learned a lot by just studying the past. And Paul came and did a presentation, talked to the Preservation Society. So we think that we're going to get this right. We've got a huge job in front of us in terms of dormitories. We think we've got an idea about where they might go and what they might look like. We'll share that at the appropriate time. We'd like to build another 300 stalls to get us up to 2,200 stalls. And then we've got to rationalize. I mean, when you walk back behind us, you're taking your life in your hands. There's horses there, there's golf carts, there's trucks, there's utility poles. I mean, we need to do a lot of work in that regard. And then on the front side, again, realizing that we need to protect our heritage here, there's certainly a lot of things that need to be done in the way of power and plumbing. So our hope is, let's get that VLT thing going we spoke about earlier, and let's see if we can't be putting the shovel in the ground for at least some of the improvements, particularly here in the backstretch in September of next year.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. A final question for me. Since I upset my partner in the Breeders' Cup Classic last year, he has steamrollered me on cigar bets in the last 3 or 4 months. Be honest with me. Should I take Munnings against Rachel tomorrow?
You know, it's an interesting rate.
I've
been discussing this with Hal Handel, who's one of our EVPs, and Hal ran Monmouth for many years.
Yeah.
And I think Mr. Handel would be on the Munning side of that bet because he thinks the horse, may get 109 and change and keep going. I'm of the mind, I'm the horse player that's don't make a significant wager when you're asking a horse to do something it's never done before. And, this is Monmouth may be speed favoring, but 1 1/8 is still 1 1/8. And I also may have a little soft spot in my heart for the filly. So I think the filly can let Munnings go, can sit off, and when they turn for home, I have a pretty good idea who's going to be in front.
I now turn you over to my very happy partner with that answer.
Have Hal come and see me in the press box. As many cigars as he wants. Quickly, let's take a look at the upcoming stakes schedule here at Saratoga. Stakes doubleheader this afternoon. The Diana and the Jim Dandy. Stakes doubleheader tomorrow. The 4-Star Dave and the Gopher Wand. On Monday, we've got the Amsterdam featuring Quality Road. I don't ever remember a horse prepping in the Amsterdam for the Travers.
That's pretty good
The
stuff.
De La Rose next Wednesday, the John Morrissey, the John's Calling next Saturday, a stakes doubleheader, the Whitney and the Test. Charlie, thank you so much for being with us.
Always.
We'll see you on the final show. I'll save the emails for you for the final show.
Great. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks to everybody who helped get this week's show on the air. We appreciate it very much. Thanks to our sponsors, Parting Glass Racing and Whitehall Stable. And from all of us here at Down the Stretch, we'll see you next week.
Better than picking the winner? How about owning the winner? With Saratoga's original racing partnership, Parting Glass Racing. Our partnerships are surprisingly affordable, offering minimum risk, maximum purchasing power, and the unparalleled expertise of a superior management team. A team of proven winners. Join Saratoga's original racing partnership. Call 877-RACE-WIN. That's 877-722-3946. Or visit partingglassracing.com.
Whitehall Stable is having a breakout year. Hi, I'm Jim Pippo. I'm really excited to share this dream. I've put together an expert team that personally picks quality thoroughbreds. We have an exciting roster of 2-year-olds this year. It's a great opportunity. Shares are now available. Low risk to you at fair prices. I will manage your investment because it's also mine. See your horse run this year at Saratoga. Join the excitement. Go to whitehallstable.com or call today.